Top 5 questions for George Kliavkoff. And I have a lot, but the 5 after his comments the other day, really, I mean, I've been thinking about it. Levi put out a tweet that people responded to about something I said yesterday, and I do kind of want to dive into it a little bit more with you guys before we put it to bed and move on to the next college football issue tomorrow. But number 5, why have they not tried to add teams? And why not try to copy the Big 12's playbook? And this might not be him. He might want to, but the other teams that are investigating a place. So I'm a little curious as to why.
How can you add teams, though, if you don't know who you are?
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, why
not?
The
Big 12 made a move knowing that they could add 4 teams, not to overcome the loss of the money, the revenue, whatever. But they knew they had to add teams.
They had to. They had no choice. They were not going to be an 8-team conference or a 12-team with the new conference and – or no, 8-team before adding the 4. They had no choice. I mean, the whole thing was going to fall apart. The Pac is still at 10 no matter what. And, Paul, I would just say I don't know that they haven't tried to add teams. That would be my first thing is, who's to say that they haven't? I mean, we're speculating every day on, anytime Brett Yormark says something about just even the West Coast, we're like, who's he talking to? So, maybe George Kliavkoff's not as outright, public about what they're doing, but I think those 2 teams that you have right there, I am sure that they have been vetted and have been talked to. And if they haven't, then the conference deserves to fall apart and never be spoken about again, because to not have talked to those teams at this point would be doing a massive disservice to the entire entity that you're presiding over. So I think that they probably have. I just think, too, is you're in the middle of a TV negotiation. So, if you're talking to, let's say, ESPN, and you tell them, what do you think about SMU and Boise? I'm sure you're getting some feedback back, but if SMU and Boise, and the answer is from ESPN, well, we'll give you $500,000 more per team, is that worth it?
Yeah.
Is that worth it? Or is it just basically putting a Band-Aid because as soon as Arizona sees that, they're going $500,000 and we're adding SMU and San Diego State, and I can go to the Big 12 right now and make $5 million more and have better games. I'm going to go to the Big 12.
Okay, if you're San Diego State and SMU and you've actually been offered, you've said yes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, my question is maybe being more outward about it, like the Big 12 was. They're not.
Why have you not?
Why have you not been more active about at least just
because maybe most
of
their time has been spent on making sure that they still have who they have left?
I think it's the TV negotiations. I think that's a massive part of it.
But part of this I also think is you also need to make sure that there is a conference even if teams do leave, which is what the Big 12 was trying to do is look, if we add these other teams, at least there's a conference if the door still stays open.
No matter what fan bases, media, speculation, or whatever else, after Texas and Oklahoma left, or whatever fan bases thought they had more value or their school had, the Big 12 converged, they met, they all looked at each other and said, yeah, you might get this call, you might get this call. We are going to die if we're not all in this right now together.
Well, and the problem with the Pac,
they've been able to do that with the Pac-12.
The problem with the Pac that's different too is, you lost Oklahoma and Texas, and I know KU fans said they're going to the Big Ten next, and
Which is what I was just talking about.
Yeah, Iowa State fans said they're going to the Big Ten. Well, they were not going to the Big Ten, and they were not. And unlike that with the Pac-12, is they lost to USC and UCLA, who most people probably wouldn't have thrown into the mix at all to begin with, and so those are out. But now you're still unsure whether or not Oregon and Washington are even going to be there. You don't know if Cal's going to be there. You don't know if Stanford's going to be there based on just the speculation. So I think TV negotiations combined with the fact that your next 4 brands in line could also be leaving if they get an invite at any moment. That's just a lot of instability. So, I'm sure SMU and San Diego State, for example, would jump on that. But, man, there's a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yeah. Number 4, if UCLA is doing so well in this league, where did the debt come from? Was this just them being totally irresponsible? I mean, I know that part of it's not the Pac-12's fault, it's UCLA's fault, but again, if they're doing well, why is there $62 million in debt? If the Pac-12 works so well for them, why are they in this hole? Why do they feel they had to make this decision to get more money per year to help them crawl out of this cavern of debt they're in?
Are they in
COVID-19?
Yeah.
Coaches' salaries.
Yeah. And Tony knows all about those numbers. Some of the things he sends at times, I don't always agree with him, but he said that UCLA's fine. I know there's the story that they're highly in debt. and they don't take state funds and all that. But yeah, that story wasn't just out there just because they have some.
That's $62.5 million of debt.
They have a hole to dig out of. Yeah,
they got a hole to dig out of, and they're not. The stadium. They've got a stadium that's too big for them, and it's hard to fill, even when they're good, which isn't very often in football. So again, if you're going to get pummeled and nobody's going to go, you might as well go to a place that gives you a bunch of cash. I mean, that's just how it's going to be.
Yep.
Number 3, I would like to know who did the math for UCLA's travel bills. It says that they're just going to break even when they're going to be making $50 million more a year, and they're going to spend all of that on travel. I don't think so. They're probably going to spend most of it on their debt.
Yeah, you're talking what Kliavkoff.
Kliavkoff said that. So consider the source. I think I said this yesterday. I don't know how the numbers add up to where all of a sudden just a little bit more travel, and I know going to Rutgers is more than a little bit than compared to like Tucson, but that doesn't add up to $75 million or whatever it is. That it all just squares away to being the same in the long run. Like those are just the most pricey jets of all time, or he's full of it, and I think he's probably full of it to some extent, because why is he going to polish this up for the schools that are leaving? He's going to try to make it look bad on them, and I think that he's been sort of maybe kind of successful in doing that. Maybe, I don't know. I think most people are like, yeah, we totally get why they're leaving, but I'd like to see his calculator work on the travel evening out to basically just being back at zero. That makes zero sense with the money that's going to be coming in from the Big Ten.
Yeah, Tony just texted me. Dennis from the COVID year and very high spending on the massive number of non-revenue sports that they run at Olympic quality levels.
Well, thank you for watching us, Mr. Altimore.
Yeah. And I could say this, though, and just on the other thing is...
I knew he'd know.
Look, the other thing UCLA needs to do is they've got a lot of gold medals going out the door there, and that's great, but they've got to make those gold medals work for them financially. Because clearly right now they're not, right? If you're getting all these gold medals, so, yeah, to me, you just got to make them work. And part of it might be just bad, which is why you go to the Big Ten, because you got to try something new because it's not working this way. Number 2, is going all in with Amazon the best way for people to see your games? Now, look, you might be able in the Pac-12 to get maybe a slightly larger TV deal if Amazon really, really wants it. But is that going to be good in the long term? Because there's a lot of content on that app. There's a lot of stuff. And are people going to go there and see it when we know that networks still matter? When the biggest games are on the network, I think part of that is just to scare maybe ESPN into doing it. But if you don't even know what your league's going to be, how scared is ESPN going to be? Mm-hmm. When you might wind up doing this, having to do this because you've played this hand. I think you have to have a streaming component. I think it'd be cool for a league to get on Amazon or Apple, at least partially. But I don't think outside the NFL going all in with, and the NFL's not all in. They're doing one game a week. So doing all your stuff on one network, I don't think that's going to be great.
A network that they have now.
An app.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that they would do that under any circumstance. I mean, we've already heard about the late night windows. I mean, I think they want a streaming component, but I don't think by any means they're going to be exclusive to Amazon or anything along those lines. That would just make, might as well just start. Some people already have, but go ahead and give me a shovel too, and I'll put the next 2 feet that we need to just go ahead and get this grave done, because that would be the death of that conference. There's not enough people lining up to just watch exclusive Amazon games the entire season. I don't care how many subscribers that app has. That's not when the brands that bring in most of those eyeballs are in some cases not going to be there in a couple years, like the LA schools, or may not be. Like, that's the part of this is who is in the Pac-12 in 2 years. Until we know that, it's all this is kind of fuzzy. You could sell it somewhat with Oregon and Washington a part of it. That's certainly going to give you a much better shot than without them. So if they've got them, then yeah, I could see this being a component. But no way you go exclusive streaming. That'd be death.
Yeah, and that's I think that's one of those things you throw out there to see if they how the networks react to you. But yeah, you can't do that. And number 1, do you really think no one else is leaving? I know that's what he has to say, but does he really think that?
I don't take anything from Kliavkoff on that as factual in any way, because he's got to say what he's got to say. But I really don't know. I think it flips like every day. I think that there's certainly reasons to believe that Kevin Warren still has more geography in mind, but I also understand the people on the other side who think that it's settled down. All I know is I'm careful when it's settled down because that's normally when something happens.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I guess as long as there's a bunch of scuttlebutt and nothing really moves, and yeah, maybe you can rest assured. But as soon as it gets too quiet, then that's probably when we're going to hear the big pop of a balloon out west, or in a few years on the East Coast. I think that still remains to be seen, honestly. But I know there's not a whole lot of options out there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
There's only so many options until to the ACC in a few years. So maybe it is settled, but again, I take it with a grain of salt.
I don't know if I mean, you got to say what you got to say. And look, I think 2030 is the year to really look at it when their contract comes up again, when they're renegotiating again, because if in 2030 the 16-team league has worked out so well for the Big Ten that they're like, heck yeah, and USC and UCLA are like, hey, if we didn't have to always go to Minnesota, that'd be great. Like if we could go to Washington, we're all for that. If you guys want Stanford, we're behind you. Then maybe I think that could happen. But I don't think it's going to be in this cycle. But then again, it could change just like that, because if things go south, things go south. I mean, nobody thought it was going to happen in the first place, and it did.
Yeah, I mean, for them right now, I know they got to focus on the TV deal, but I'd be focused on the fact that it's only been 3 weeks, but the conference actually has some pretty fun storylines, and that's from LA to Utah to Seattle to Corvallis and beyond. I mean, they've got some fun teams through the first 3 weeks. I know some of that will subside and some of that will gain even more steam, like a USC certainly. But they've got a good little football conference at the moment. Certainly the most exciting it feels like it's been in a long time. So they need to take full advantage of that. However, that's even possible to do.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Craig Smoak.